Welcome to TYT Interviews. I'm Anna Kasparian, and we have a great and hopefully illuminating interview ahead for you guys with Josh Fox, who is the documentarian behind the Oscar-nominated documentary Gasland, and also Gasland II, and also an award-winning documentarian. You received the Lennon Ono Grant for Peace by Yoko Ono back in 2010. Josh, thank you for joining us, and thank you for having a conversation with me about the Dakota Access Pipeline and what you've personally experienced at the site.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's an extremely important issue, and I'm glad that you're covering it because there's been so little mainstream media coverage.
In fact, I do want to focus on that a little bit later on in this interview. And what we are seeing right now and what we are experiencing is a lot of digital news outlets doing incredible reporting on what's happening. You've been in North Dakota. In fact, you just got back to New York. And so I want to talk a little bit about what you've experienced there. As I watch very little coverage of this on CNN. I've noticed that some of their hosts refer to the protesters as rioters, which I believe, original reporting done by TYT and what a lot of witnesses have seen disputes that. But tell me what you've seen. You just got back to New York, so what is the experience there?
Well, I was at Standing Rock 2 different times. I was there about 2.5 weeks ago for about a week and a half, and I just went over the Thanksgiving weekend to report on what was happening. The camp actually swelled to 15,000 people over the Thanksgiving weekend, so more people than they've ever had there. And of course, some of the best coverage on this issue has been coming from TYT, from my main man, Jordan Sheridan, who has been just tearing it up, filing like piece after piece every single day, always on the front line. And I've been so honored to serve alongside of him in the press corps. But you're right, there hasn't been much mainstream media. Now, normally what happens with the mainstream media is they don't know anything about anything. So they report sort of he said, she said style, right? So, for example, like if the protectors will come out there and say, we are 100% peaceful, and then the cops come out and call them rioters, the mainstream media will sort of just sit in the middle and go, well, this is what either side is going to say. That's what you call he said, she said journalism. Now, what's wrong with that is that it actually doesn't report the truth. It just reports what people are saying. To report the truth, you have to have investigative journalists. You have to have people on the scene, because right now, one side is telling the truth and the other side is blatantly lying. And we've seen this over and over and over again in the history of our media, whether it was the tobacco industry saying that they don't give people lung cancer, actually cigarettes are good for you, or the oil industry saying, oh, well, we don't contaminate watersheds, or the fracking industry saying, well, that water could be lit on fire naturally. I call this phenomenon the sky is pink. When you have a news anchor and science comes on and says, oh, the sky is blue, and then industry or the oil companies say, actually the sky is pink, and the anchor sort of shrugs their shoulders and stands in the middle and goes, well, the facts are being debated.
Yeah,
and as long as there's a debate, people think that there's some reason to not act, not be concerned. Now, in this case, I have to be very, very clear. The Morton County Sheriff's Department is lying. It is abhorrent, it is disgusting, it is a dereliction of duty. And they're doing it to cover up their own violent acts, which are akin to attempted murder.
So,
now,
Josh,
I don't use those words lightly. The Morton County Sheriff's Department shot my friend Aaron Schrody, a CNN correspondent, a congressional candidate, in the back. They denied that they did that. They used water cannons at sub-freezing temperatures, which constitutes lethal force, right? They denied that they did that. They threw a concussion grenade at a protector named Sophia Wilansky, completely obliterating her arm. She's been in surgery all week. She may lose the arm. They denied that they did that. To the Morton County Sheriff's Department, black is white. There is no violence happening on behalf of the police department. But when you're an eyewitness to these things, and there are many, many eyewitness accounts, not just myself, and when you're a reporter who's obligated to tell the truth, I have to tell you that these protectors and that these water protectors are 100% unarmed, and they have been 100% peaceful. Now, every once in a while, they'll yell back something at the cops. They'll say, why don't you go and have Thanksgiving dinner with your family? And then immediately somebody else will say, hey, chill out. Don't be reactive, stay in prayer, stay calm, and then they do. The most violent thing I've ever seen on behalf of the protectors is something like that.
Right. I mean, there
Yelling at
were
an
reports of a provocateur who had nothing to do with the movement. In fact, he wanted to undermine the movement, and that was the only incident that got violent or appeared to be violent from the protester side. But again, he was a provocateur. He had nothing to do with these protesters. He was just trying to stir up trouble. I want to clarify something very quickly, Josh, before we move forward. You said that CNN correspondent, who's also a friend of yours, was shot in the back, but you didn't clarify how. I just want to make sure the audience knows.
Yeah, shot with a rubber bullet. And that's an important clarification to make. They are, for the most part, well, a couple of weeks ago, the situation has really escalated, but they are shooting people with rubber bullets. Now, rubber bullets have the Orwellian title of less lethal, as in fact you can see on their shotgun stocks. There's printed on the rifle itself, less lethal, like as if that was somehow reassuring. Now, if you look statistically, 2 people out of every 91 people that get shot by rubber bullets die. So yes, they are in fact lethal, but in a less fashion, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with tasers.
There are a certain percentage to get permanent injuries.
Right.
So what we've seen are a lot of concussions, stitches to the head. A person who had a detached retina may lose the eye because of that. But of course, there is the chance that those things will be lethal. There was a big attack that happened about a week and a half ago, last Sunday, that used water cannons at freezing temperatures. Concussion grenades, like I mentioned, ripped a person's arm apart. Now, had that concussion grenade hit Sophia in the neck or in the head or in the chest, she would be certainly dead.
Right.
No question. So to me, the charge of attempted murder on behalf for the police against peaceful protesters is not inappropriate. And to be honest, they shouldn't be using lethal force at all against 100% unarmed protectors. In fact, there are signs all over Ocheti Sakoan, the main camp at Standing Rock, that say, huge banners that say, "We are unarmed. We are unarmed."
Now, the governor of North Dakota has issued an evacuation demand, and he wants the water protesters to evacuate as soon as possible. But the situation has actually gotten a lot more complicated, considering the fact that, just a few months ago, there were as many as 200 protesters. Now there are literally thousands of protesters. Yep. And so it'll be a lot more difficult to remove them. And of course, the protesters are saying, no, we're not leaving until the construction workers leave, until the authorities leave, until this land, which we have not ceded, remains untouched. And for those who might have missed the story, the big issue here is the fact that this pipeline would be built under the Missouri River, which is the longest river in the United States. And they're very much concerned about their water, their drinking water, being contaminated as a result of this. The protesters don't believe that the proper environmental examinations have taken place. They don't believe that, the safety examinations have taken place. And so they're worried they're worried about something very legitimate here. And, just today in Kansas City, there was a pipeline that exploded and there was a gigantic fire. And so it's not far-fetched to expect for things to go wrong, especially when, oil and gas companies do away with regulation through their campaign donations and things like that. So what's going to happen? What I'm concerned about is now that the governor has issued this evacuation notice, and now that we know that there's so many people out there protesting, how do you predict this is going to go down, especially considering the fact that all this violence has already been used against these water protectors?
Right. Well, first of all, thank you for calling them water protectors. They don't like to be called protesters. Protesters is a colonialized term. They are protecting their water, they're protecting their air, they're protecting their land. And you are absolutely right. There have been 3,300 incidents of major pipeline leaks in the United States between 2010 and 2015. We are in a state of perpetual spilling. So I don't even call them spills anymore. Spill is like when you knock your glass of water off the table. That's an accident. That's a spill. I call this a permanent state of criminal negligence on behalf of the oil and gas industry. And that is supported by the facts and by the evidence. We are in a state, look, the Kalamazoo River has not recovered recovered from the deadly oil spill, the very damaging oil spill there. The Yellowstone River, Mayflower, Arkansas, an entire suburban town whose garages were filling up with oil when the pipeline burst there. The beaches of Santa Barbara, which had a huge oil spill just recently. And this is just to name a couple. So you're absolutely right. They have a point to put that oil pipeline underneath the Missouri River through what is territory and land that the Standing Rock Sioux tribe has never ceded to the United States. It's still their land in their eyes. The Treaty of 1851 states that this was their land and they never gave it to the United States. So they dispute, and it's literally right upstream of the rest of their reservation. So it's their only watershed, it's their only water source. So they have a point. Look, I got friends there, a lot of friends, and I'm really worried. I don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, this situation has all the elements of potentially becoming Wounded Knee Part 2, or Part 17,000. Mm-hmm. The history of the United States, of the Native American genocides, 500 years, of murder and slaughter of the Native Americans, the theft of a continent, the fact that this order was issued over Thanksgiving weekend, mm-hmm. without irony.
Right.
And the December 5th deadline from the Army Corps of Engineers is actually the birthday of General Custer. These police that are there are the ideological and genealogical descendants of Custer. This is the direct through line of the ideology of Manifest Destiny and of those genocidal wars. And for the governor of North Dakota, this is Bull Connor. This is racism pure and simple. And a lot of us, and I think it's Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, now Tom Udall, a lot of members of Congress are calling on Barack Obama, saying, if you care at all about civil rights in this country, if you care at all about human rights in this country, you must act now. You must bring in the Department of Justice now.
Absolutely.
And in fact, we are organizing many journalists and many activists working together, and many medics and other people from other walks of life, and certainly that indigenous sovereignty movement, which is at the core of all of this, is saying, we're going to the National Mall in Washington, D.C. on December 12th. We are going to set up our teepees over there. I will personally be there December 12th. Be there on the mall, because look, North Dakota is hard to get to. Mm-hmm. And even still, 15,000 people showed up for Thanksgiving weekend.
It's amazing.
The mall in Washington is a little bit easier to get to. We want you there. We want thousands of people on that mall on December 12th to show Barack Obama that he has to act. This will obliterate his legacy on Native American issues. This will obliterate his legacy on climate and fracking issues. This will not that it was so good on fracking, but this will obliterate his record on civil rights. This is the moment right now at Standing Rock that will define the United States of America, that will define Barack Obama's presidency, in the same way that when the Freedom Riders rode down on those Greyhound buses to Mississippi and Alabama, John F. Kennedy had to send his brother Robert down as Attorney General to sort out integration in the southern states. That was a big part of JFK's legacy. He wasn't paying attention. It took months of protesting to get him to act. That's what's happening now. Barack Obama, the White House, your administration, you have to listen right now. You're in a moment. I mean, I don't remember who said this. Reverend Yearwood quoted it. It might have been MLK. We don't remember the actions of our enemies as much as we remember the silence of our friends.
Yes, that's
if
a
Obama stays silent on this, it is damning.
It is interesting that Obama has decided to stay silent on this, along with a lot of other, high-profile public figures and politicians. Hillary Clinton is another one of them. But with Hillary Clinton, I feel like, considering her record with things like fracking, it's to be expected. But with President Obama, he's been quietly, very much under the radar, his administration at least, protecting hundreds of thousands of acres of public land. And so it seems as though he's willing to do these things quietly, but when it comes to high-profile cases like DAPL, he's not willing to take a stand and protect the water protectors.
And I would posit that that's the reason why they've lost the White House.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a huge reason why, absolutely.
If Hillary Clinton said something about Dakota Access Pipeline during the last few weeks of that campaign, she would have garnered a lot of enthusiasm from a lot of people. If Hillary Clinton had done what I suggested, and many people, Bernie Sanders suggested, to come out against fracking, she would have won this election. No question in my mind. You know, she lost Michigan by what? 10,000 votes? The ban fracking initiative in the state of Michigan had nearly 250,000 signatures. You know, there are single issue voters on fracking and on Dakota Access Pipeline. I think, look, that are in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in all those key states that she lost. The failure of the neoliberals to have realistic positions, that is to say, the positions that the people are demanding of them to actually solve the problem, has cost them the presidency, has cost them the government, and may well cost us the future of the planet. Bill McKibben says winning slowly on climate is the same as losing. When we look at, excuse me, I did get a cold out there.
It's cold.
When you look at how dangerously close we are to tipping points on the climate, we do not have more fracked oil from North Dakota to burn. We don't have more fracking gas to burn. James Hansen calls these forms of energy. James Hansen, who testified on climate in Congress in 1989, the grandfather of our climate change movement, he said, tar sands development, fracked gas, fracked oil, this is game over for the planet. Now, game over for the planet is not something that you should have a sort of democratic establishment incrementalist position about. Neither, by the way, are these intense human rights violations. You cannot say, oh, well, both sides should kind of come together and kumbaya and make the pipeline happen after you have a racist police force that is using lethal force against peaceful water protectors.
And not only are they using potentially lethal force, using water cannons in 20-degree weather as it gets colder and colder, they're also, what I find very interesting, because there's a lot of criticism when other protesters do this, they're blocking avenues in which medics can get to the water protectors who might have been physically harmed as a result of this brutality. And so, you know, we can't have that double standard. That double standard cannot stand. You can't say, oh, these anti-Trump protesters are blocking traffic and that's wrong. But when it comes to people who are literally being hurt, physically hurt by cops, it's okay for them to block medics from showing up. By the way, there are volunteer medics on the scene, and those are real heroes. Those are people who are, you know, taking their time, their resources, also risking their own lives in order to treat individuals who have been hurt with water cannons, rubber bullets. I mean, the people who are out there are amazing, and I can't thank them enough for standing up for something that's so important.
Can I say, heroism is the right word for everybody in the situation. The medics, the reporters, the protectors themselves, and certainly the indigenous tribes. There are 500 tribes there. And this is one of the great moments of indigenous unity in our history of the United States of America. These people are formerly warring and formerly competing tribes, and they're all coming together and sending people to Standing Rock saying, yes, environmental racism must end, and attacks on indigenous sovereignty must end, and climate change is an extraordinary priority for us who care about the earth. But listen, what's amazing to me is, look, if you go to Oceti-Sakowin, the main camp at Standing Rock, you will not touch a dollar bill, you will not touch your credit card, for the entire time you are there. There is no McDonald's. There's no Pepsi Cola stand. There's no Walmart. This is a self-organizing community whose priorities are entirely different than the values that we have in our society right now. So, like, our civilization right now, especially embodied by Trump, is based on greed. It's based on competition. It's based on institutionalized racism. It's based on violence. It's based on consumerism. These are the things that are the underpinnings of the current United States of America. And guess what? It has built the ugliest, most wasteful, most greenhouse gas emitting thing in history. You go to a strip mall, I challenge you to have a quality experience in a strip mall. You can't. You can't buy happiness. The pursuit of happiness is actively being blocked by that lifestyle. When you go to Standing Rock and you go to Oceti-Sakowin, the organizing principles are community, generosity, resilience, innovation, care for your fellow man, human rights, democracy, and yes, resistance, and peace, and prayer. You can't avoid having a quality experience when you're there. You can't avoid having your heart be touched. You can't avoid having your spirit be changed by being in that consequence. So of course, the reigning ideology, which is emptiness and waste and racism and extractive industry, has to try to crush that. The question right now is, will this become a new movement for our future? I believe it will. I think Standing Rock, look, Governor of North Dakota, Barack Obama, whoever is dealing with this, the Army Corps, the National Guard, if you knock down Oceti-Sakowin, you're going to see 300 of them spring up all across this United States, because there are tribes everywhere, there are environmentalists everywhere, people are fighting fracking, or they're fighting pipelines, or they're fighting offshore drilling or onshore drilling or mountaintop removal for coal or uranium mines. You're going to see that camp become 1,000-fold. And I hope that happens.
I hope that
because
happens
we have
as
to
well.
reject this ideology. And as Chase Iron Eyes, the incredible congressional candidate from the area, said, we are the ghost dancers now. We are the people who are saying, we're going to dance our spirit into this country. And it is the anti-Trump. It is the way we've got to go. And I'm so excited. On December 12th, we're going to the Washington Mall. Be there. But I think we have to encourage this. I've already gotten entreaties from tribes in Boulder to say, can we build a fractivist Indigenous alliance to fight fracking in Boulder? Same thing in Texas. Same thing in Florida. Same thing in a lot of these hotspots where you've got pipelines or fracking being proposed. This is the way we're going to oppose it. So, we need it, frankly. We've been living in a very empty Walmart-based world with corporatists in our government, with banks running the show, with no one getting a recovery except for, the 1%. I think it's high time, and we are seeing a template for that action there in Standing Rock, and we're not going to stand for, a racist governor coming in with the National Guard. That's what terrifies me. Barack Obama, be on the right side of history. Take action. We're bringing the action to your backyard.
I love it. Josh Fox, thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for taking the time to have a conversation with me and our audience about what's really happening at Standing Rock.
Listen, Anna, you guys at TYT have done an incredible job.
Thank you.
And, I think one of the things that this whole thing has shown is just how irrelevant the mainstream media has made themselves.
That's definitely true.
They're not. People have come up to me on the street going, hey, I saw you on TYT. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's a big deal. And so thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And stay safe. And for anyone who's interested, please join Josh Fox. Please join these activists. It's an important issue. It has to do with our natural resources. It has to do with protecting those who are powerless against gigantic corporations. It has to do with fighting back for our democracy, our freedoms, and things that we're entitled to, including clean drinking water. And also, I just wanted to note that Wes Clark Jr. is doing great work at Standing Rock, supporting these water protectors. If you want to see more reporting on this, please check out youtube.com/TYT Politics, where you can see Jordan Sheridan's original reporting on this. Thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and keep fighting.